Hey guys! Welcome to this lovely, awesome Friday. We have a super special guest, which I'm really excited about. All of you, hopefully by this time, know Ed LaBarre, Mr. Bear Man in person. He has been here all week long, teaching several groups of people all of his tips and tricks and unique nature
designs.
Yeah. That's really his specialty. So we have been having a fantastic week here. Hopefully you guys didn't miss us too much last Friday and this Wednesday. You are ready for a great show today. Obviously we've got Denny in here.
Of course, gotta have Denny here.
Yeah, we've been teaching Denny new tricks all week.
Yeah. I'll tell you what Ed does is super special. It is special.
Yeah. Yeah, and so we're super excited to show you guys how to do his circular basket weave, which is what we're going to be doing today.
Right, we're going to be doing just the circular part of that, which is what everybody wants to learn how to do. It's really pretty simple. It's not that complicated. Denny was a whiz at it.
If I can do it, anyone can do it. That's what you're trying to say.
No, I said that you were a whiz at it, is what I'm saying. So we're just transferring the pattern now.
What's the diameter on your circle here?
The diameter of the circle is, I think, about 7 inches in the diameter.
Okay.
And I cut off the part that told me exactly what it is. It's actually in the trash can now.
Well, you have a ruler here.
Yeah. There we go. That way we can tell. I forget exactly what it is, but it is, 7-inch diameter. And the diameter of the center line for the basket weave is exactly 5 inches. Now, that happens to be just the right size for the Berry King one that I use for most all of the basket weaves that I do. It's just a perfect size for this, and of course you size your pattern accordingly to whatever size basket weave you have, because part of the process of this is we leave an area by hand and to see where it matches back up.
So you just do that all manually. So if you're starting with a new basket weave that you haven't used before, you're going to be tracing it out. You don't have some fun, snazzy math for us to do.
Well, the math thing is as good as math normally works. We are dealing with natural components that they have a tendency to move around a little bit sometimes, and sometimes you get kind of offline. But so we'll go through that process. I have a little example to show you on that. But
it's actually, rather than math, that last part is trial and error.
Yes,
it's just a match.
It's just about the same as
sounds like
how you work. Yes, that's it. You build in a fudge factor.
Okay.
Exactly, and then
I do love fudge.
Then we keep closing up that fudge factor until we get it just perfect.
All right.
All right. So now we just go ahead and trace our pattern. But for me, the first thing I have to do is put my eyes on.
We're just doing the circle. Right?
Yeah, we're just doing the circles for right now. And a little tidbit about drawing circles or arcs. If you're right-handed, you'll find that if you do your lines counterclockwise, you will be able to use the heel of your hand as a pivot point so that you can trace right exactly on the line without much effort at all. If you try to go clockwise, for our right-handed people, Denny's left-handed, by the way, so he's just backwards on that.
Going the other way.
You go counterclockwise, and you can stay right on the line without all the little dog legs that you get if you try to go clockwise. And it's simply the way that your hand works. It's just the mechanics of the bone structure inside the hand. And so we're working with what we have.
Yeah, left-hander goes clockwise, right-hander goes counterclockwise.
Yes. And we have a couple lines, both inside and outside, and then we have the stamping line that we use in the center. So we try to get those as accurate as we can, and you can feel with the tip of your finger to see if you've actually been in that area. So we just continue on putting our lines down. And hopefully I'm still on screen pretty good.
You're doing great. I'll tell you when you go away.
Okay. Well,
I always tell Denny.
I always need that kind of help.
That's really my other main job besides just talking. I just tell Denny to move.
Well, you're so good at talking all the time.
Hey.
Yeah, these poor people just had to listen to me answer emails all day long, clickety clacking on my keyboard. So I wasn't verbally loud, but I was just mechanically loud.
If somebody was really nice, they might send you a silent keyboard.
No, I like my loud. I specifically got it because it was loud. I did.
It impresses me.
Early, I just need to make people feel like I'm doing things.
I keep
Well-
thinking that Morse code is coming through.
For somebody that used the hunt and peck method on a keyboard, hearing what goes on over there is pretty impressive.
I use the Columbus method. Find it and land on it.
That's it. That works. Luckily, I don't have to type it, maybe one line at the time. So I do okay most of the time.
You don't need to write full pages.
Not normally, although sometimes when it comes to writing things for a book, I'll have to go over it 2 or 3 times, and then I have somebody look at it to make sure I spelled things correctly.
Ooh, Terry. Hey, Terry, we've been missing you. I've been hoping to see you. It's one of our regulars on here, and I was just talking to Tony the other day. I was like, have you heard from Terry? Because he's not been around, and we need his shenanigans. But he says he has one of your malls, and he loves it.
Oh, well, good.
Oh, yes, we have to talk about his malls. Guess what I was gifted this week?
Did you bring it? Oh, you did bring it.
He guards that thing like
I
it's a
know.
first child,
So this is Denny's new Ed LaBarre mall. Look at that beautiful handle. What wood was this again, Ed?
That is Paducah. And it has a piece of colored micarta here in they call it Indian blanking design.
I love it.
It's pretty nice. It's actually too nice for Denny. I think that thing just fits so nice right in the
Finally got his
body.
hands back on it. He's not gonna let it go
We
again.
have to.
No, well, that's too heavy for you.
I love it, though.
All right, well,
Between Tony and Ed and Liz, they all got together.
Oh,
Ganged
yeah.
up on me and gave me a gift.
That's right.
I
We
love
did.
to be ganged up on.
yeah, we conspired. Trying to be incognito. I don't know how successful we were.
You were 100%.
Fully successful.
That's always great when that works out.
So now, Denny, you have was it a 15 and a 12 ounce?
15.
Okay, so the one that Denny usually uses is a 15. But we got out of him that he would like one that's a little bit lighter. So Ed made him a 12 ounce small.
Yeah, I figured it was about time for him to add to his collection.
Denny loves his tools. I think everybody does. Who doesn't love some tools?
Oh, everybody loves new tools.
That's right.
All right.
Right.
Now on your center line here, you can go ahead and make that a solid line if you like. Because that'll just give us a good guide. So we should be okay with our pattern now. So we take 2 adjoining corners so that we can peek. And it looks like we got it all.
We've got the back all taped up, good to go.
Yes. Just get that done ahead of time.
Ed sure does sell his malls. Do you have a website, Ed, or do people just contact you?
No, they just get a hold of me. I thought about doing a website, but there's just so many different options
Yeah,
and
it's a lot.
variables that just
Ed's old school. Give him a call. You can find him on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
You can find him on Facebook.
just under my name. I can't hide anywhere. All right, at that point, we can go ahead and start cutting our beaded lines up here, making sure that we don't cut our center line. So we can go ahead and do that. I like to cut from the outside in, so that after I do the outside line, I can see the outside line when I'm cutting the inside line, just to help make sure that I'm going in the right direction.
For sure. And for all of you out there that have any questions about ceramic blades, it looks like Ed has one and he's using it. And so while we don't really do that here between Denny and Kevin, Ed's a person for some questions if anybody's got some. Ed LaBarre, LaBarre.
Correct. I was a lot more fortunate than I thought I was when I was given this blade. This, according to a person that I used to mentor under, a guy by the name of Jim Dellis. I was given this blade, and he told me at the time this was one of the very first 6 that were ever made.
Oh, wow.
And if you compare it to the new ones, it's actually a slightly different color. And after all of this time, because this was in the 50s, I think it said it was, or early 60s when he got it, it has never been sharpened, ever. It's only been stropped, although from what I understand, stropping a ceramic blade is just, it makes you feel good, but it doesn't help the blade at all.
It's not really doing anything.
But
From what I've heard, the residues from the leather itself will collect on the blade, and you can strop it and polish that back off.
yeah, that's all you're doing is just cleaning the blade off. But after all this time, it's one of my go-to blades that I use because it always cuts and it's always consistent. It makes a nice cut every time.
He just makes sure that he never drops it.
Right. And luckily, so far, I still have both the corners just like they were originally made. And by cutting the outside line first, you can actually see the distance between the 2 lines, and you can make sure that you keep it constant. Now, invariably, you're going to get a little wiggle every once in a while. Everybody does that.
We're not robots.
And, there are ways you can somewhat correct the distance by the way that you bevel it. You can't move it a lot, but you can move it some to where it's a lot less noticeable. But as long as you're pretty consistent with it and make a fairly consistent bead, everybody's going to be looking at the basket weave part of it anyway, so they're probably not going to notice the bead too much. So you don't have to be too awful concerned about that. And the reason I mention that is because most people tell me that that's one of the hardest things for them is to cut a bead. Of course, it helps after doing so many saddles at the saddle shop that it's just kind of one of those things that comes natural.
I was saying, just practice. Like Denny and I talk about all the time, people that are struggling with something. It's like, well, just sit down and practice. Every night, sit down and carve some circles.
Right, yeah. Find something that works really well for you and keep practicing it till you perfect that. Once you perfect that, move on to something else that works really well for you. Practice that until you perfect it. And pretty soon you will have a whole library of things that you've perfected that you can use in all of your projects.
I always tell everyone that, you can cut a lot smoother line than you can draw on a piece of leather, because the leather is so inconsistent. When you use a stylus or a pencil or anything, you're not going to be able to draw very smooth, but you sure can cut it smooth. You've got a nice sharp blade.
Well, the blade actually anchors one anchor point, and so it helps to keep a lot of the errant lines out.
Now I'm going to wet mine a little bit more. Why don't you tell me a little bit about this?
Well, this was a solution that I think Bob Dellis was. I don't know if he was the originator of this or he just, brought it to the saddle shop with him. But it's basically a formula which helps your swivel knife cut a little bit easier, and it also helps the leather to burnish a little bit better too. Now, we're working with Herman oak leather. It burnishes beautifully no matter what kind of water you put on it. But this here actually intensifies it quite a bit. As you can tell on the picture here, most of the coloring on here around all the basket weaves is nothing but burnish from the Herman oak leather. And so basically what it is 6 cups of hot, or not hot, but pretty warm water, 4 tablespoons of Lexol conditioner. It's the one that comes in the brown and orange bottle. 3 tablespoons of vegetable glycerin, and that's the main components of it. If you live in an area where you get a lot of mold and mildew, it's probably a good idea to put a little bit of Listerine in there, like maybe a tablespoon. And what that does is that it helps keep the mold from forming. And that's it. Just,
That's a fancy water you got there.
yeah. Now, the last thing that you put in there is, for the 6 cups, you put in 40 drops of Dawn. The old original brown Dawn or blue, it really doesn't matter what color, but the oldest version, just 40 drops.
So
And
is it the concentrated or
no,
regular?
it's just the old Dawn.
Okay.
And
Because I know, like, I buy, like, my kitchen, I have the concentrated Dawn dish soap.
yes,
But you just
it's
wanna
not the
get-
concentrated.
Okay.
And once you get done, just mix it back and forth. You'll see that it'll foam just a little bit. And always put it in the cheapest spray bottle that you can, because if you put it in one of the fine mist spray bottles, it will clog that up pretty quick, just because of the components in there. But it really does make a difference.
Maybe we'll try to click that little section here in a little bit, and we can post just that little section about the formula.
recipe.
Yeah, I have the recipe right over there in the box.
Okay.
So it's easy to get to.
Card you had of it?
Yeah, I had a little card of it here.
Oh, there you go. I think it's better than that one.
Yeah, right there. All right, that's the little recipe card. All right, we're ready to make some noise now. Are you ready to make some noise?
I'm ready to.
All right.
I'm always
Ready to start
for
tamping.
All right. So always use the biggest beveler that you can. And this one here just happens to be about 9/16.
Is that a custom made?
This tool here was made about 45 years ago. It's one of the very first tools I ever made.
So
And
okay.
it's-
So don't ask us to buy that tool.
No, Barry King makes a really nice one, and there's other manufacturers that make really nice ones that are big. But the biggest tool that you can use on the project always works out the best. It speeds things up, plus it helps cut down on the little jagged lines that happen whenever you're tooling. So
Here we go.
here we go, making noise.
Look, Heather's on the chat. Heather has been here all week, guys. She has been a trooper. I don't think that she was supposed to be here all week, but she was.
Yeah, I was very impressed with her abilities.
She's almost home.
Well, I take it she made a home on it last night.
He said almost. She probably has a fancy car like Tony, where he gets the YouTubes in his car.
You can pretty much do it on your phone and just set the volume on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found out kind of the hard way. If you're traveling down the road and you got your GPS on, make sure you put it on Do Not Disturb, because for some reason that seems to just attract all the scam callers whenever you're going down the road.
Oh, he's available to talk.
Yeah,
Tony loves that. He'll talk to him.
yeah, I noticed that this morning already.
I did. I had one this morning.
My wife's favorite comment when she gets one of those is, "Did I call you?"
I have a deal for you. Wait, I called you to try to see if you're able to turn.
Terry Leach is also watching, who attended your class this week.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, Terry actually came down to the house for a few days.
Yeah.
Spent
I
the
didn't
day.
get a chance to say goodbye to him. Bye, Terry. How you doing?
Now, on this pattern, I just like to do the border first, simply because it gets the hand-eye coordination going, so that when you pick up your basket weave stamp, your hand-eye coordination is already there.
and it's trying to multitask. It's not going well. Looks like you're just gonna have to watch, and
Multitasking is pretty difficult whenever you're stamping leather. all this kind of reminds me of the days when I was working at Lion Country and in the walk-through area, cleaning the cages. Everybody lines up to watch somebody get attacked by the lions. So never bothers me at all for it.
I think we're all just in awe that you get to be in a cage with a lion. And we like secretly kind of want to also be in there, but are also really scared.
Well, you know, it's after the first couple times, really not impressive. I mean,
No one ever actually got mauled by a lion while you were there, did they?
not bad.
They all lived.
I mean, yeah, they survived with most all their limbs and at least part of the blood left in them. But the first time I was in the walk-through area cage, one of the adolescent males made sure that he grabbed my hand just to say, "Hey, I am a lion." Okay, so you learn pretty quick. And luckily at the time I was smart enough to know not to try to yank my hand back out of his mouth. So it gently let go. So we were buddies after that.
Okay, I've got to ask you a question. I was just thinking, when we get asked this all the time, do you use a push beveler ever?
Every once in a while I'll use one, but I only use it on like the main veins of like an oak leaf or types of leaves. I use it so that I have a little bit better control, so I don't have to use a regular beveler. It just helps actually smooth it also.
Okay.
But that's about the only time.
Is there a definite reason why you wouldn't use it doing what we're doing right now?
Basically for the depth. Because
I was gonna say you're not gonna get that much depth.
Yeah, with a push beveler you won't get this
Or
much depth.
texture. Because they're smooth, right?
Yes, they're
Yeah.
smooth.
So this has got that nice cross edge.
Okay, I feel so vindicated. Because that's what I tell everybody. You just can't get the definitions I want.
Well, I'm glad to say that we hadn't talked about that ahead of time, so it's nice to know that somebody else is exactly the same way. Now, if you notice, I'm actually holding the leather down with my wrist, and it gives me a pivot point and an anchor point both, so that I can move the beveler right along without having to pick it up out of the leather. And you can notice with the bigger beveler that you can bevel pretty quick with it. Even as big as this is, as wide as it is, I'm still getting around the inside of that curve.
Is it about a 1/2 inch long head?
It's 9/16.
Okay.
The reason I remember that because it was a 3/8 bolt, which has a 9/16 head on it.
This one I've got is about a 3/8, I believe.
Mm-hmm. So those take a little bit longer, but it'll still make it all the way around.
The best thing about the largest beveler, you have more bearing surface on the line. It's easier to keep on the line.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so we got our bead around the outside. There you go. You're almost there.
I'm just
Hey, you're not far behind at all. So we can still use the biggest one around the outside of the small bead. We just won't be able to use it on the inside of the small bead. And once we get the beads done, then we get to move on to the fun part. Now, when I'm sitting at home tooling, of course, I'm basically sitting in my easy chair.
Oh, yeah.
Tucked up underneath a great big stone. So whenever you're standing up tooling, you're not used to standing up tooling, you know, there's a little added challenge, but it's something that you can do. You can do it just fine.
I feel like half the time I end up kind of like a midway between a stand and a sit over my bench, trying to get the light right.
Have
so that,
one hip up on the stool and one on
yeah,
the
you're
floor.
just like trying to.
Yeah, I actually got you to do a little bit of leather work.
You sure did. I do a little bit of leather work here and there.
Liz is an excellent knife sheath maker. I mean, she's done some phenomenal stuff. She come up with a belt loop that I'm amazed by. I think it's really cool.
Thanks, Denny.
Well, we'll have to take a look at that before I go.
I'll show you some pictures.
Okay. Well, good. I might just steal it from you.
You should. I think I've started to do like brogue pattern punching
Uh-huh.
and then put exotic inlay under it. I mostly do exotic inlay. I'll do maybe a little bit of basket weave or some border stuff here or there, but mostly I do exotic inlays in my knife sheaths. But last fall I did a purse with the brogue style punching, and that just made me real excited to try it out and do more. So it's fun to design the patterns, like the punching patterns.
Well, you know, a lot of times my best design ideas come in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I used to keep a pad and a pencil next to my bed in the nightstand. But I found out real quick that writing things in the dark and then trying to read them the next morning just, you know, made me realize that, well, that was probably a good idea, whatever it was.
I can only read this.
So it's been quite some time since I've kept a notepad there. But that's usually how I come up with some of the strangest ideas. One of the ideas that I did remember was a notebook that when you open it, you know, a notebook is pretty good size.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're up here, you're hugging this great big thing trying to write on it. I thought, well, why not make it so that you could turn half of it where it collapses on the other half? Then it's half the size.
Right.
You have a lot less area spread out. So that's what I did, is I changed to a swivel design.
Mm-hmm.
So once you get it open, you can actually collapse it like that, and one side comes over top of the other, and it's half the size.
Yeah.
That's a nice little thing, but it takes a while to make, and it uses magnets to help hold things in place when it's open.
Mm-hmm.
It helps locate also.
Archie, at the beginning of the video, we kind of went over the diameter of our circle here. And so it's really no pattern necessary. He'll talk a little bit about, I'm sure, for the size of basket weave stamps that you have, if they're not the same size as the ones that we're using today, how you can make your own circle diameter work with the size stamps that you possess. Because you need three graduated sizes. Correct?
We can do it in one, but if you have a second smaller one, that we can fill in like the last row.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know, we could do it with just one, but it looks a little better with just that last little row filled in with a smaller one.
Gotcha.
Also, it would depend on how much space you have in between the outside circle and the inside circle.
Exactly. What I try to tell people is if their basket weave stamp is bigger than this particular size Barry King, which unfortunately he does not number them, Barry.
I don't know if he watches our videos.
But anyway, if it's bigger than this, then your best thing is to start on the inside of the line and to do your first line.
Okay.
If you use a smaller one, then you can go to the outside.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're probably going to talk about in just a minute. He's got a whole 3 inches left. So we're going to get those 3 inches beveled here.
With the center bevel.
And then
Did you
we'll get
beat
into
me?
that.
You did.
See, I shut up.
Oh, is that what it was? Yeah, I tell you, that's one thing when you're sitting there in the front of a saddle shop, everybody else is behind you talking. Of course, you got to talk along. And so after a while, you just don't connect your mouth through your hand.
Yeah.
Now the maul I'm using here is a pretty heavy maul for this, but I chose it because I like to use a pretty heavy maul to do my basket stamps because I sink them in pretty good.
What thickness of leather do you have here?
We are working on like 7 or 8 ounce
Okay.
leather, and so it'll take a really nice impression. So let me get my tooling example,
All right.
and it'll help if I can find it real quick. You know, lots of dead air, right? Somebody's phone's over here.
Yeah, it's mine. It's
There we
okay.
go. All right, here's a little tooling example. Is what we want to do is we start off at a starting point, and these lines here I just put on there so you can see what quadrants are. But we start off with a regular stamping with this particular stamp. We go about maybe 2/3 of the way around and just do our normal Basketweave stamp on that line. And then from there, we will do hand impressions, making sure that we're really accurate as far as the spacing. Now, what we want to do is, do you have that other one?
Yes.
What we want to do is make sure these parts right here, which are called legs, make sure the leg goes all the way up to where it meets the bead.
Mm-hmm.
Try to get
Yeah,
it up
there
there.
you go.
Okay.
That's pretty visible.
So that way we have the end of the leg just touching that center beaded area. And so if we consistently do that with every one, then we get to the end, we can see what kind of space we have left, and we can also see that we're ending up on the correct side of the line. Because if we end up on the wrong side of the line, then we really have to do some adapting of the length.
Like doing a buck stitch.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes, kind
or
of.
like a pull string pouch. You have to have them both coming out the same way.
Yeah, exactly. So with this particular stamp, it usually comes out where we have about 1/4 of an inch extra to deal with. And so since we have a little bit extra there, the first 2 or 3 we will lengthen just slightly, maybe a 32nd of an inch.
Just a tad, little bit.
Instead of the end of the leg going all the way to the bead, we might move it a 32nd of an inch. We'll do that for 2 or 3 of them, and then do some normal stamping up to about here. Then we'll check it again by hand.
That way you don't have to take all that difference out in 2 or 3 stamps.
Right. Yeah. Usually just by changing it down here with 2 or 3 stamps that are lengthened out a little bit, that will get us up here pretty close. Mm-hmm. And we may have to lengthen the last couple, but it usually works out just about perfect. And once we get that stamp, that first line put in, then we can just fly with it. Going to the inside, there's a little bit of technique involved. Going smaller, going bigger is pretty straightforward. The only thing we have to make sure of then is that wherever the ends of the legs is, we have to make sure the center bead for the next impression is right exactly in the center of that.
Yeah, it's most important to line up the middle of the stamp.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So now's a good time to add a little bit more moisture to it, just to make sure we have the right moisture content. Well, I tried to do it over the garbage can so I don't create a puddle back here.
I like puddles.
All right, so
Me and Rosie.
Oh, yeah.
We're puddle makers.
this is actually just slightly wet, but for time convenience, we'll go ahead and get started. We want to make sure that we get the legs exactly on that line. Make our first impression.
Going on the outside of the line.
Right.
The first course is
With this particular stamp, it really doesn't matter whether we start either way. But the most important thing is making sure that the leg is all the way up to the bead, and make sure the other end of the Basketweave is exactly on the line. And if you notice, I always have really nice, clean, deep impressions. It really does help to have a little bit of weight in the maul, or whatever you use to tool with.
The right moisture is very important too, I think.
Right, that is the most important part. And if you would like to use a heavier one, I have an 18 in my box over there.
Sure, I'll use it.
Wherever my box is. The maul is all the way in the back part of it.
I didn't want to bring anything but an Ed LaBarre.
It doesn't matter to me. I mean, as long as it works for you, then that's the best thing to do. Of course, mine are usually prettier, and they're balanced better and have better head material. But you know, that's beside the point.
Other than the fact that they're so much better than anything else.
Now, I was very fortunate to figure out what one of the old design mauls that were made by Bob Beard, which were the greatest things in the world until he stopped making them. And so I knew that that's what I wanted to use. So it actually took me about 3 or 4 years to figure out what the material was made of. And Bob Beard insisted that I make these for everybody. And so I started making them for everybody. I originally started making tools so that I could afford to do my leather work. Well, I found out within 2 weeks that I no longer had time to do my leather work because I was so busy making mauls and tools that now I try to come to nice places like this so I can actually tool leather.
If you guys will notice too, on this first course, both of us, after every stroke, turn the leather the other direction so that we can alternate.
Right. And with my poor eyesight, I do that so that I can really see what's going on.
Yeah.
If I try to look on the opposite side, putting it in there, I'll never get it on the line. It's not really the end of the world if you get way offline. Had a nice gentleman here yesterday that actually wound up doing a spiral with his instead of a circle because he got way off the line, and it just turned out he tooled a spiral, and it was an interesting pattern. It was a little different, but it worked out really nice.
Happy accidents.
It was one of those happy accidents, as Bob Ross used to say.
We love Bob Ross here.
Yeah.
Kevin is our Bob Ross, so.
Well, you know, one of the techniques I use whenever I'm putting coloring on there is a technique he used to call scrumbling, which is instead of brushing things, I keep putting it on the right.
No, you're good. This is my job. I just move things around and make it work.
Instead of using the tip of the brush to thing, use the side of the brush and actually almost scrub it. And that's one of the techniques that I use whenever I'm doing color work. So I always use his terminology of scrumbling. But making sure that we're really accurate as far as putting the leg all the way up to the bead of the other one and making sure the point is on the line is pretty important, especially on this first line. Because after this first line, it changes considerably just because of the way that we do the rest of it. When we get to the inner circle part, we will actually be leaning the basket weave so that we can incorporate the bead and the legs of the one before that into the next impression. All right, I think maybe one more pair of impressions here, then I will do the hand impressions to see how we're coming out.
Heath, I always feel like we know your questions before you ask them. We're really good at reading your mind.
All right, so that's about 2/3 of the way around. And so from there, what I want to do is put it in just like it was, like we normally would.
Maybe go back to that other one. There we go.
Here, put the leg in all the way up to the bead and make a little bit of impression with the other end. And then we just keep going around. I know this is terrible for the camera.
No, you're good.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
I can see it. Good.
Okay, and we just make sure that we're really accurate going around and leaving little impressions, little indications, just so that we can make sure that we will come out okay. And if I did my job correctly on here, we should wind up with about a 1/4 of an inch gap. And the reason I kind of dialed it in that way was so that a lot of people will use the X511 craft tool stamp, which happens to be just a little bit longer. And if you have that, it pretty much automatically comes out just right.
All right. So everybody, if you have the
X511
X511 Basketweave tool,
Yeah,
he's pretty much accounting. So the Berry Kings have shorter arms, and so they're just slightly long enough. You probably, I mean, I don't know if you've ever counted how many impressions, but you might get 1 or 2 less possibly as you go around.
I think it's about 3/4 less.
Okay.
That way it comes in just about exactly right.
Yeah.
Without even having to do this, but I would still do this.
Right, just to make sure. Yeah.
Because
Yeah, because you can't be perfect with every set.
Right.
no. Mm-mm.
Right.
And so you can see we're closing in.
I can't be perfect.
You're always perfect, Denny.
He just doesn't want to admit to it.
Sometimes I get dadgum lucky.
This is
Okay.
7 to 8 ounce leather, Martin, 7 to 8.
Right.
Thanks, Heath.
Okay, as you see, I'm actually lined up on the wrong side.
Oh no.
Okay, so since I've lined up on the wrong side by about 1 whole distance here, what I need to do is I need to lengthen these
You need to take up a
Even-
whole space.
even more.
Yeah.
Or I can shorten them up a little bit. And with the distance that we have to go, I think the best one for this, let's see, where would I want to go? Yeah, I think what I want to do is lengthen just a little bit on each one of these, which will help collapse this in, because we want this stamp here to go here. So basically I'm wanting to make up about a 1/2 inch.
Mm-hmm.
And so since we have that many stamps, we could count them up and figure out exactly what it is. But if we go about a 1/16 of an inch longer on the first half of this, we will check
We
it
should
again.
take up that slack.
We should take up most of that. So instead of being exactly in here like that, we will lengthen it about a 1/16 of an inch.
He's going to give it a little breathing room.
Right, it's a little bit of a fudge factor. And the same thing. I'll just hold on to it. How's that?
Ed's going to whack me with that mallet. I'm not careful.
Oh, you don't want to get hit by this one. All right. So we're just taking up extra space here. And you will see that even though these are about a 1/16 of an inch longer, it's really not visible to the eye.
Yeah, and especially once you get all that done, like you're not gonna see it
No.
in the sea of all the basket.
Well, it's just like this one here. That one's not perfect either, but you really have to study it to know that. That, it's one of those things that, every carpenter knows where the problems are.
Yeah.
So we're down.
I think
I
if
almost
people
learned.
study it that close where they can find that, they need a job that keeps them a little busier.
All right, so I'm going to check it again and see. Now, when you do it the second time, you really have to pay attention to where the last mark goes in. But I can see already that I'm almost exactly double
Uh-huh.
over on top, so it should come in pretty close now.
I feel like that could get confusing.
Yeah, well, you just have to pay attention. You should be just fine. It's just like anything handmade. Sometimes you need to build in that little bit of fudge factor. All right, I can see Now,
Getting there.
I'm on the correct side, but I'm still about 1/8 of an inch short. So I will just continue on, adding about a 32nd of an inch this time, just a little bit, and that should come in just perfect. Of course, when I was doing my impressions on hand here, I did them a little bit heavier than what I normally would.
So you guys can see it.
Yes, so that everybody can see. And from here, I should be able to just...
Do you know a lady named Brenda?
I do.
She's watching.
She is. Well,
Hi, Brenda.
it's about daggone time.
Thanks for joining us today.
She's my accountant, so I have to be in good shape here, you know. So, let's see.
Hi, Vanessa. Hi, Wayne. Welcome to the show.
Into that just a little more. And we come out on the correct side with nice full impressions. And so from this point, we can fly from there.
There it is.
How about if I just put it in my pocket?
You can lay it down on the table. It's just my camera's coming in right here, and this is your spot that you like to put, which is fine.
It's okay. Hey, you know, go ahead and treat me like home.
I wrangle wily leather crafters all day long between Denny and Kevin.
Oh, well, that's a full-time job. That's got to be a full-time job. All right, add just a little bit more moisture there, and see, I'll put that over there behind that.
I appreciate that.
I did good, right?
Look, it only took about 45 minutes. I'm getting them trained.
Yeah, I know. You know, old bears are hard to train, you know. So from the outside, we just line it up like normal, and from there, we don't have to turn it back and forth because it's all on the outside of our pattern line. So we could fly pretty good from there. But one thing we need to be aware of is that the way that the beads line up.
Hang on. Go up, Tony. Okay, thanks.
All right. The way that the beads line up, it's very important that the beads, the center sections of the basket weave, line up so that they point towards the center of the circle. You don't want them to be at an angle like that or the other way. You want them to line up so that when we get done, all the beads line up together and make a straight line. If those line up and make a straight line, when we get all done, we will be able to see the radial arcs like what we see on the example piece.
Cool.
And that's what we're looking for. We want it to look like you're looking down on top of a woven basket, looking down inside. And you should be able to see on the screen there how it makes radial lines come off also. That's just because of the way the pattern is. The lines will go in both directions, and it looks like it just dives down into the center.
Mm-hmm.
That's
a vantage point.
Right. That's what we're looking for. And so to get that, we just have to make sure that we keep our basket weaves lined up on the bead. The bead is the most important part whenever you do any type of basket weave. Not necessarily the line. Your line could be a little crooked and it's never noticeable.
Now, Ed, the other day when you asked for some tools and I went out to try to find you some things, I came back with some basket weaves that had non-horizontal lines in their center, and you said that's not going to make a happy spiral.
Right. Yeah, what you want is you want a fairly bland beaded area.
Mm-hmm.
Where can I put that?
Look for.
Oh, here, if you go here, right here.
Right here?
Right here.
Right there.
Looking right here.
Can we focus on it?
Well,
Hold on, something.
we might. Okay.
How about if we do it up? No, we can't do it up there. All right.
You put it there and then. There somewhere. All right, there we go.
There it is. All right. We want a fairly bland beaded area in here. If it gets too complicated, like a pattern or a star or something or a rope design, as you're as you're manipulating it on the surface, they will get just kind of lost and get kind of jumbled up. But with the 3-bar lines in here, you can see that all the time. So I try to stick with the 3-bar. It's just my favorite, but it works out great for this also.
Okay.
So, you just don't want to get too complicated with it because it just gets jumbled up otherwise. And when you're doing a pattern like this, it's really not about the center part of the basket weave. But if you notice, one thing I'll do is I'll put it in place and I'll move it back and forth just to make sure that I have it exactly in the center, just so those beads will line up. And once you start going around the outside, it happens pretty quick. Now, we'll get to the inside, we have to get a little bit tricky for that, but it's really not difficult. Just have to retrain some people. But the thing about it, he's a lot more trainable than what I am.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty good about that.
You guys, what do you want?
Well, that mall you think that you had over there, that would be a nice addition to my collection.
Oh, man.
That's what I thought.
I think we would have to fight him if we tried to take it back.
Gift is a gift. I will never re-gift that. I'll say that.
Well, I hope not. Remember what it said on a little piece of paper. Don't ever loan me out.
Yeah.
That was kind of the voice of experience. Somebody bought a couple malls and they loaned one of theirs out to somebody and they never saw it again. So that's the reason I put it on there. Yeah, I'm the same way. In class, I'll loan them out, but I'm not gonna send mine to anybody.
Don't leave the room with it.
It doesn't go to the bathroom.
After all of the classes that I've done over the years, there's only one tool that I've ever missed. And it was an old X511 that I had modified slightly, that had been used on several different saddles. So it had a little bit of a personal value to it.
Sentimental value.
But as far as the tool itself, it was nothing special. But so far, out of all the classes, that's the only tool that's ever disappeared. And I'm sure somebody just picked it up thinking it was theirs.
Yeah, that happens.
I tell you, one thing, overall, leather people, some of the greatest people out there in the world.
I absolutely agree.
Much better than most other industries out there. I've been associated with a lot of different industries like that, and leather people by far are so much better.
So at this point, Ed, it looks like you've got like the tips of the legs.
Right, we're pretty close to the end of the length of this, but we can still make another round without a problem. If you do get to the point where the tips of the legs aren't touching, it's not really a big deal at all. You just go back with a stylus or something and connect the legs.
Okay.
It's just like this one here. It's just right at the tips of the leg. And
Where you had to fudge a little bit to make things match up.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit longer.
Sometimes they get a little longer.
right. They get a little bit longer. Now, sometimes, you have to fudge by getting a little closer, and but in the end, you'll never see it. But you can see it. It
That
actually
basket
goes,
coming to life.
yep, it happens just automatically. So, there again, we're wanting to make sure that our lines are completely lined up, and the side of the tool is a pretty good indicator.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they're pretty straight. All right, one more row, probably maybe two more rows. One out. Usually on this pattern here, it's half of an impression on the last one, simply because I don't like the ends of the legs hanging out in the middle of nowhere, and so I like to connect them somehow.
So is there a reason that you do your border first?
The only reason is to get your hand-eye coordination going.
Okay. Okay.
Stamping wise it really doesn't matter. It's just whatever you prefer. I know a lot of people like to get right to the basket weave.
Yeah.
Because that's the most exciting part. I just do the border to get kind of going. Get in the zone. That's one of the nicest things about when you're sitting at home tooling a pattern, especially something like this where you really don't have to think about it too much. You just get in that zone and the world just disappears. It makes it really nice.
Just you and your leather.
Especially when your accountant is asking you questions about things you never remember.
Poor Brenda. Her name is just the accountant, which seems very intense.
Well, it's not nice calling people out by name most of the time.
No last name.
Yeah.
They need to remain anonymous.
The accountant.
Yeah. Well, I do want to sleep inside the house when I get back.
These guys have to alternate punching their basket weaves, otherwise they're gonna rock each other. When I try to tool with Denny, he hammers so hard that it just bounces everything that I'm doing, and I can never get anything done. So I just let him do his thing.
It's not intentional.
No, it's just
It just happens.
it's just natural.
You sure about that? That's not what you told me that.
You can really mess with her bad like that. I didn't mean it.
Well, I tell you, I've been here better part of this week, and one thing that I've noticed is how well everybody gets along here. So that's a good sign for a company. When everybody gets along so good.
Well, we want to like coming to work, so we definitely try to keep that mindset going.
Yeah. Well, any place that allows dogs to come to work is a good place.
Oh, guys, you should have saw Luna this morning. She reared back like a groundhog with a donut in her mouth and told Ed the what for.
Donut.
Well, I kind of made that happen by growling at her first, so.
We're getting there. But there's too much tapping going on all week, so she's been in the other office. She does not abide by any of these shenanigans.
She just does not approve.
No.
Well, the problem is she said, well, if only I could do that. I could join along. Because she definitely likes making noise.
I was going to say, I think she's just jealous that we get to make noise and she doesn't.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we're pretty much around as far as we can go on the outside.
It is kind of nice because you've beveled so deeply on that side that you're not even having to tip the tool very far.
No.
It's just like the side of the tool, as long as you keep it
above the surface.
Yep. It just, the bevel just rolls right down.
Yes.
And you just get that one side of the impression.
Right.
So that's perfect.
It helps. I mean, it really helps. And of course, the better quality of basket stamp you have, the better results you will have. Mm-hmm. There's lots of good brands out there, but I tell you, I've used this Berry King one for so many projects that it's just kind of second nature. That's the first one that I grab. Now, what I do is I go around right after I get one area done, and
Let's see if we can.
I put that right in the heart.
No, I know. We're just
I tried to get it out.
gonna go.
There we go. So what I do is I just go back and I try to connect any of the lines.
Here we go. Let's try that there.
Any of the lines that might not be touching. Just make them connect. It doesn't really have to be too carried away.
La la la.
And it doesn't take me just a moment to go around there. It's going to have a border stamp over this anyway, so it's probably not critical that I do this, but it just makes me feel better doing it, so I always do it. And now we get to do the fun part, going to the inside. And it's not really difficult, it's just a little bit different technique. All right, so we're good there.
The thing is, the inside of this circle is a lot smaller around than the outside. So
Mhm.
the outside you have to
Fan out.
compensate for
More space.
more space. The inside you've got to tighten things up.
Yes.
Got it, man.
Now, what we want to do is we can stamp the inside as long as the leg part does not touch the center area of where the bead is. So if we only go in just maybe a 1/16 of an inch on both sides, it'll still work good. But if it compresses to the point to where the legs are overlapping the center, then we have to go to a smaller one.
Okay.
So the process is, do we have a camera over here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We line the legs up so that we know that the center part of the bead lines up with the center of the other ones. Then we want to lean it back so that the bead actually touches the surface before the legs do. So we tap it just to get it set. Then we start tapping it harder and harder as we stand it up. That way, the legs fall into the impressions of the legs before that, so they line up really nice. Now, eventually we'll get to the point to where the legs, instead of, where I'm at here. Over here. Instead of the legs coming together like this, they will actually wind up where they're like this.
Little crisscross. Okay.
Yeah, there'll be a little crisscross.
That's all right.
So,
Yeah, that's fine.
So, if it gets to the point where they start getting crisscrossing too much, it'll be noticeable. If it's just a little bit, you'll probably never see it. So, it doesn't take much longer to do it this way.
So if they start to crisscross noticeably, what's the
Then we usually go to a smaller one. But there again, once we go around this line, we'll take a look at it to see if it's ruined the impression of the line before, which that does happen quite often. It will mess up the impression from that other row. So we'll take a look, and if it does, usually what all you have to do is go back to the previous row and lean it that way slightly just to reset that impression.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Somebody was asking about your stylus that you're using.
This one here, it's a little real fine point stylus on this end, and on the other end is something I call a snake head. It's basically a tapered cone, and I use that a lot of times for beaded areas, just to roll over the edge.
So it's not so sharp, for sure.
Yeah, it's not so sharp. Plus, it rolls it over real nice and smooth. I use it a lot on veins of leaves or just about anything to round it over. Really easy, really smooth. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to think about digging an edge of a spoon into something. Spoons and I really don't get along very well because I usually wind up digging the edge of the spoon in, leaving a hard line that you just can't get rid of.
Yeah. Is that a custom?
Of course. This is the type I produce now. Looks a lot more like that. It has a steel shank going all the way through it for strength. That way I don't have to rely on the strength of the wood because, with 3 parts of wood like that, if it flexes at all, it's going to come apart.
Right.
And that one.
So these are your custom tools?
Yes.
Okay.
The tips are put in just strong enough so that if you break a tip, which with the extremely fine point like what this one is, I guarantee if it drops on the floor, it'll break.
Yeah.
If it breaks, it's easily replaced just by heating up the tip with like a match or a lighter and pulling this out with a pair of pliers. Then you just slip a new one in with a tiny drop of super glue, and you're all set again.
There we go.
That way you don't have to have the expense of buying a new one.
There we go.
All right, where was I? I was right here.
Also, there's nothing wrong with the handle, so if
Yeah,
you can make things replaceable, that's awesome.
You gotta make them pretty, though,
Yeah.
You can make them with just a straight, plain, ugly handle, but, it's always so much nicer to work with things that you feel the quality of. Doesn't make the tool anything any better, but it does make you feel better about using things. and I'll show you here just a second because I had one of those situations pop up. I was talking about trying to fix the impression of the previous row. As soon as I get all the way around, I'll show you. But you lean it, tap it, so that the center bead actually contacts first, and it may stretch the surface of the leather just slightly doing this, which makes the legs pop in together like that. I'm not sure, but I know that it works.
Hey, Denny, we hold yours up so I can see it.
This way, Denny.
Just point it towards me.
Do you have a camera on top of you?
No, he's over here incognito.
There you go. There you go. Perfect.
You act like you've never been on camera before.
I've never been on this end before. How's that?
Our old dog forgot his tricks.
Yeah, he's over here in a different spot.
It bewilders me. Am I on this camera, that camera, that camera, that camera? And it really doesn't matter anyway because I still don't know what to do.
Denny gets lost in space.
All right. Well, we can.
Thank you.
All right, we have a situation here, like what I was talking about before, is that sometimes in the process it'll leave a little mark on
I'm going to hold this up real fast for us so they can see.
Here, I'll zoom. You set it back down there. I'll zoom it back in.
Okay.
Okay. Right here. See how the leg.
Hold on just a second.
Okay. Are we good?
We're good.
Should be.
Okay. You can see right here where the end of the leg actually got into the bead of the impression before. The way to fix that is to put the tool back into that bead that got messed up and just lightly tap it, and that mark goes away.
Yep.
So it makes it disappear. So that's usually my process is I'll stamp a row, go around and see if there's any things like that happen, and go ahead and fix them at that time. That way you're not having to go back and fix too many at one time. But it's quick and easy.
GIP, I think that they're not using a weighted shop bag is because they have to spin it so much.
Right, yeah, and it just kind of gets in the way sometimes too.
Yeah.
And that's, after a while.
Falling into a ring of fire.
Okay. And
Burning ring.
And that's all you get, so otherwise they'll shut us down.
Down. The Basketweave grew smaller. So I stayed my little.
most of the time I'll use my wrist or the heel of my hand to help hold things in place, and that way I'm not having to move a bag around all the time.
Jim Linnell does not like shot bags at all. When he was here, he said, if you need one of those, you're holding your tool wrong.
Now, that's another thing that I see people doing, which actually is detrimental to their tooling, is that they will hold the tool too high up on the shank.
Yeah.
Where am I at? Whoop, I was there. There we go. I'll see people holding tools up here like this, trying to control things. Well, if you're holding it up there, you really don't have much control. Mm-hmm. I find it best, I always put my little finger just beside the working end. That way I have control so that I can move it this way if need to, but yet it's stable. It's very stable that way. And I grip it with 4 fingers. Where did we go? There we go. I grip it with 4 fingers and the thumb on the other side. So I'm gripping it with my whole hand.
Yep.
I know a lot of people will put fingers out
I've got
to stabilize.
three fingers and my little finger on
And
the
the stabilizer. Yeah. That works great too. As long as you're good and stable on everything, you're fine.
That is correct, Heath. We have been using the same Basketweave stamp the whole time.
Right. And we have enough distance on here to where we could finish with this same stamp.
I think I'm going to be able to.
Yeah. And we should be able to. We'll just have to go back and we'll have to fix the little bug bites from the ends of the legs going on to the previous bead, which is not a problem at all. We just go around it and take them away. And we will be able to finish this with just one stamp. Oop, I almost got my lineman off. That particular one there used 2 stamps.
Okay.
But if you guys look at this, it looks like the stamp size is graduating smaller.
And smaller and smaller. Yeah, that's the way
It's just an optical illusion.
this was one of those things that I thought up in the middle of the night. And I just sit down without any pattern whatsoever. I just winged it, and it happened to work out. That was the very first one there. All right, so yeah, we could do this last row with the same stamp. We wouldn't be able to do another row, but we can get this last one in. And of course, once we get done cleaning up anything that we need to clean up, then it'll be time to do our border stamps going around. And that will basically be it for the circular basket weave. This makes a great pattern for clocks or purses or notebooks. Just about anything where you have a big enough area that you can see the pattern. You wouldn't want to do it on an area of the purse where it folds over, because you never really see the pattern too well.
I'm almost wondering, Denny, you know my big leather basket that I do, the big molded basket? I almost wonder if you could tool a whole big circle and then leave the bottom blank and then cut those slits along your basket weave lines and then mold it.
Yeah, if you were, I wonder what the...
And then it would be like, it would be like a woven basket on the inside.
A woven.
A woven
basket.
Yeah, we'll need to try that.
Yeah, that sounds like an interesting project. That would be good to see that. All I'm doing now is I'm just going back and cleaning up the little areas where the legs got into the beaded sections of the previous row. Just cleaning those up, making those disappear.
Did you tip your tool at all on this inside course?
Yeah, I just tipped it a little bit, just so that we didn't put a extra line on the inside bead.
I did too. I wonder if I did wrong.
No, that's exactly the way it should be. You know, if your tool's not fitting in where it's supposed to be, try tipping it a little bit. Sometimes that's all you need to do.
You definitely just want to avoid getting into your border.
Right.
And depending on the border stamp you use too, that depends on how close you can get to that border.
Exactly. All right. Well, I think we're about ready to put our border stamp on. You just cannot train an old bear. You just can't. It doesn't work that way.
I need to get a stick so I can just poke it over.
Hand me that water.
Yes.
Either that or just put a bucket there. That way I know. Of course, that wouldn't help either. I'll try not to even set it down. All right.
You're good.
What we're using here is this is a 226 or no, a 436 border stamp, and then I have a smaller one to go around the inside, which is the same pattern. And I don't know what number that is. See, I almost put it over there. Yeah,
we're above right
this
now.
is
So
this is one of those ones I was telling you about. This
Oh yeah.
So this is what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
This little camo tool.
Yeah, this just happens to be one of the saddle maker stamps. They Craft Tool made a set that they called for saddle makers, and The only difference is it has a heavier shank on it, and supposedly the stamping in is a little bit more crisp, but I like it, so that's what I use.
So, I mean, we've learned a lot about Denny's saddle making history. Where did you make saddles and how did you get into that?
It was McClellan's Saddlery in Lake Worth, Florida. They're in Wellington, Florida now, which is the area down in Florida where all the people that live there have their own hangar for their private aircraft.
Of course.
Have runway going up to their house. You know.
That's ridiculous.
Which
Okay.
Is, might be nice. I have no idea. But anyway, they started out in Lake Worth, Florida. Started by Jim McClellan. Used to make mostly cutting horse saddles, and probably maybe 15 or 20% were show saddles. I was lucky enough to make a few really nice show saddles for different people. But
So had you done any leather working before you started working there?
nothing really professionally at all. And so that's the first 2 weeks I was there. My whole job was cutting applicator pads out of sheepskin.
Yep.
And they said, "Well, this is what we want you to do." I said, "Okay." And so I sit down with sheepskin, cut them up in nice little 2-inch square applicator pads. And he said, "Just put them in the barrel here see if you can fill the barrel up." Well, at the end of 2 weeks, I had 3 barrels filled up. And they finally decided that I was going to stay. I think it was a test to see if I was.
Oh, sure.
And moved on to maintenance and cleaning from there. And then I got onto actually making saddles. The saddle maker that trained me was probably one of the best saddle makers that is just unknown. He actually was born and raised in Cuba, but luckily he spoke English, which was a good thing because I don't speak Spanish at all. But his most important part for doing a saddle, which is exactly what the most important part should be, is getting the seat shaped correctly. A saddle's no good if you can't sit on it. That's just the way it is.
And I'm going to push that all over again.
You just can't train me. Unfortunately, you just can't train me. But, so I tutelaged under him for a while, and it probably took me, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 ground seats before I got one that was acceptable.
Sure.
And
Now that is an impressive skill, being able to shave those seats down. I've watched Denny do a couple, and
well, if you don't have it right, it may look good, but you won't want to ride it for more than a couple hours.
Yeah.
You get it set on there right, and riding all day is just not a problem. So, and the thing is, you have to adapt them for different people. Different people like different seats.
Are we shaped differently? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, everybody's shaped a little differently. Most people have 2 legs, but that's about the most common part. And one of the things that I always like doing, and so because of that, I used to get every one was braiding the horns with rawhide. For me, that was just a fun thing to do. And so I was elected to do all of them, which I didn't mind. But there towards the end, it was down to just George, the main saddle maker, and myself making saddles. And so I was not only tooling all the saddles, I was making the saddle at the same time. So, I was busy. See, I learned.
Look at you go.
Yeah, I learned. So that's basically it as far as a circular basket weave.
All right.
Well, you're
See ya.
right there too.
Well, I was working
Hang on.
with my deal.
Well, we can just look.
You just spin it.
We'll spin it. Look how fun that is.
Make a lazy Susan. But you really don't see the pattern much until you start seeing it at an angle. that's when you start seeing the radial lines come off from it.
Yeah.
So, and just like this one here, with it being darker, you can probably see it easier. You can see the radial lines, and it looks like you're looking down into
Yeah, I think it's
the center of a vase.
I can see it really good when I'm just farther away with that one straight on.
So what you're saying is that the farther away you get, the better it looks?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly what, that's what I say
Hey.
about my leather work too.
Hey, I'm good with that, you know? Doesn't bother me at all. But that's basically the circular Basketweave.
Oh, yeah, that looks really good, actually, from far away.
Okay.
Well, no, because you can see.
The radial part of it.
Yeah,
must
you
be
can see the
really good.
radial part of it.
Do I need to back
From
up?
Oklahoma City.
No, it's great. It's all
That's
like
what you get, Ed, for putting your mall in the way.
Yeah,
We talk about the leather work being good from far away.
it looks like you're looking at like a shell, like a.
As long as you're
shell.
talking, I don't care.
Yeah. I can cover that, that's for sure.
But that's where we're at, and Denny is just about done with his over here too.
I give up.
No, you don't give up. There's no giving up in leather.
Oh, you can't quit?
No. If you have something you don't like, you don't ever throw it away. You put it in that someday box. And every once in a while, you dig through that someday box and say, why did I put that in the box?
Or say,
Yes,
"Is that
William.
bad? Someone will
Guys,
buy that."
William has brought us home, and he said you can put some initials in the middle for a monogrammed casket cover. We made it all the way around. It's our
Okay.
whole thing about like leather caskets and like how much leather that would take, and that would be. I mean, honestly, it sounds way more environmentally friendly. The leather can just decompose and everything goes. You're not stuck in a lacquered wooden box for forever. I think
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah,
This
why
all-
not?
This all started with granite
I'm glad
It did.
Heather
It
made
started
home.
with granite.
and grade stuff.
We brought Heather all the way home. We were able to
Woo!
video her.
All
to the
right.
house.
Heather made it.
That's good.
Alrighty. Well, guys, thank you so much. Well, I guess, is there any other tidbits?
That's pretty much it. Now, the only thing different is, you know, if you want to do this same design, you can add anything you want around the outside or in the inside. You can cut the inside out and lay this onto something else.
Oh, yeah.
know?
Put an exotic inlay in there, guys.
Right. You know, they work great for doing a clock. A clock
Yeah.
is just a natural for that.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
put your numbers around the outside.
Mm-hmm.
You're ready.
Rope bag. Perfect for a rope bag.
Oh, yeah,
Put it
that'd be
on a
great
rope
for a
bag
rope
or
bag.
one of those cute little rope bag purses.
Mhm.
These Lyle leather said resemblance to a pine cone.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, you could do a lot of things. You know, I think a group of leaves coming out of the center, laying on top of it,
Yep.
would look really nice.
It would be really cool. Or inlay rock. Put a cabochon in there.
There you go.
That's what we like to do here. We
Yeah,
put rocks and
you know.
everything.
If we had, you know, a cabochon, we could lay one right there.
That's right.
If we had one.
If we, I think I took them all back to retail. Dwayne, you can reach out to Ed LaBarre through Facebook. You do have an email address. What's your email
Yeah.
address?
POLAR, like polar, B like Baker, 1717 at either Gmail or AOL, either one.
There you go. So you can shoot him an email. You can find him on Facebook, Ed LaBarre. He's the bear man. He's around. He's probably on most of the forums, chit-chatting, doing things.
Just mostly Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
I try to stay away from everything else.
I think if you Google your name, Ed, we can find you.
Things come up. So, yep, check him out. He's got all sorts. You make all sorts of tools.
Yeah,
You make all sorts of things.
Yeah, just everything is custom made, so there's no website whatsoever.
Yeah.
Just, you know, tell me what you want, and then
He'll
I'll
ask you what would you want on it, what color you want it to be, what
Then
kind
I'll-
of fun micarta you might want on it, what kind of butt cap you got going on there.
Yeah,
Looks like
then
you
I'll wind up making it the way I want it anyway.
You can pick what you want, and then I'll send you what I made.
Martin, it's a Berry King Basketweave stamp. They don't have numbers on them. Is it the medium size?
Yeah, this is, I think it actually measures 3/8 of an inch.
Okay.
If you actually measure it.
Well, look.
He doesn't put on,
It absolutely is 3/8 of an inch.
right.
So,
And it's what he calls a 3-bar. So it just has 3 vertical bars going down the center of the bead.
And it
very
makes that
tough.
impression.
Right.
yeah.
And, you know, one of these days, maybe if 1,000,000 of us get a hold of Barry, he will start putting numbers on here. You know,
listen.
so I let him know every time I see him, Barry, we need numbers on here. So, you know, he's heard it many times before, so
Okay.
maybe one of these days.
And he probably says, he gonna buy them anyway. I don't need numbers.
That takes a whole 2 more
Well,
seconds.
you know, it is an extra machining process to put numbers on there.
It is.
But it seemed like it would be easier for him to sell. You know, okay?
I'm gonna be real impressed if he watches our videos.
Easier for us to reference.
Yeah, exactly. That way I can say, well, this is a Barry King 3-bar number 2. Okay.
That's right.
Just-
Alrighty, guys.
So I guess we're good.
Yeah.
You finished?
I finished.
Come on, let's get your pictures over here now.
Oh,
go.
here, I got you right there, Denny.
Oh no, go back. You go to the top.
Go back to where you were.
Oh, or not.
All right, how about there? There we go.
Turn it towards this camera right there, Denny.
Look at
There
that.
you go.
There we go.
For some reason, I turned it the right direction.
Got lucky.
Some unknown reason.
Well, we are back to our regular schedule next
That
week. guys.
is. We are back to our regular Wednesday and Friday tutorial videos, and then next week will be our first live shopping that we've done in 2 weeks. So I think we've got a bunch of awesome stuff lined up for that. So join us 2 p.m. Central Time next Thursday on Twitch for live shopping to get some awesome, one-of-a-kind, unique, amazing, fantastic, spectacular deals. And
That's
then
a lot-
Denny and I,
A lot of adjectives.
that is all the adjectives. Oh, it's the end of the month next week, isn't it?
Oh, so we got a winner too.
It is. It's the end of the month, so we'll have our winner. So if you guys have been making anything with your live shopping stuff, tag us with hashtag SLC Live Shopping on your social media platforms, or if you want to go over to our Discord page and plop it into our live shopping option, whatever it's called there. We'll love to check it out.
After party on Twitch for just a bit.
Okay.
We're going to have a few books.
Yeah. We're Ed has 3 carving books that he's put out, and so he brought us a little stack. So we will be making some numbers, and those will be available on the website here in the next couple weeks as soon as our number process does its thing. So check out those when they're available.
And I've been feeling my phone blow up already,
I
so
bet.
it's working.
Yeah, we had a couple people that were like, got a message, got a
People are telling me
message.
how bad a job I did, so
So.
that's fine. Just as long as you're telling me.
Well, we appreciate you
Thank
guys
you, I
joining
appreciate
us, and we will see you next
It's
week.
great meeting
I hope
you.
I call you my friend.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Aw.
Don't hesitate a bit.
All right.
You know how to
See
get
you
hold of me.
guys.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Bye.